tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Friends in the Dhamma, welcome for our Saturday Dhamma sharing in New Jersey Buddhist Vihara. Today we are beginning a brand new subtopic under the 37 Enlightenment Factors. It is called the 7 Enlightenment Factors. Satta Bojjhanga. Bojjhanga. I am sure this is not a strange term for you. Most of the Buddhists usually have heard this term, Bojjhanga, due to the fact that there are 3 parittas or suttas in the chanting book that we use for the overnight chanting. The suttas that contains the word Bojjhanga are the Mahakassapa Thero Bojjhanga, Mahamoggallana Thero Bojjhanga, and Mahachunda Thero Bojjhanga. These suttas were uttered by Lord Buddha for the reasons that these suttas had to be taught in the occasions where these venerable ones got sick. Mahamoggallana, Mahachunda, and the Blessed One himself, when they got sick, Lord Buddha visited Venerable Mahamoggallana and Mahakassapa. Venerable Mahachunda visited the Lord Buddha when he was sick. And after the discussion on well-being, Lord Buddha asked them, do you remember about these Satta Bojjhanga, 7 Enlightenment Factors? It is time for you to remember them. It is time for you to think about them. And he started reminding one over the other of all these 7 factors of enlightenment, saying, Sattime Moggallana Bojjhanga Maya Sammadakkhata Bhavita Bahule Kata. Moggallana, I have clearly seen these 7 factors of enlightenment, and I have practiced upon them constantly, repeatedly, with the best of my effort. I have practiced them as much as possible. My practice upon these 7 factors of enlightenment supported me, helped me to attain Nibbana, to attain to enlightenment. Now, when Buddha was reminding these factors one after the other, by the end of the sutta, it is recorded that those venerable ones just rose up from their sicknesses. Before they were severely ill, tormented by the physical ailments, and after Buddha taught this, reminded them of these 7 factors of enlightenment, they just got up, came out of that sickness immediately, instantaneously. Now, Buddhists in the present era think that when you chant this sutta, it is a support for them to recover from sicknesses. Chanting of any of the suttas is helpful for you to gain blessing, protection, and support, spiritual support. But chanting these 3 particular suttas would not support specifically for somebody to recover fast. Why? Just because those enlightened beings got recovered, when Buddha started reminding them these factors of enlightenment, it doesn't mean that any other person can get the same result. Why? Why it cannot happen to others? What happened to the Arahants? It is simple. Just to see with our practical eyes. Those enlightened Arahants, they have been practicing these factors before. And the energy of those factors are within them. It is their practice. They have it within them. When Buddha reminded them, those factors, the positive energy rose up. And that positive energy was so powerful, it just override the physical ailments. Physical sicknesses were not compatible in a parallel level with those spiritual powers. Now, today when we chant, the people who chant have no such power within them, and the people who receive don't have such practice behind them. So, can any kind of recovery that kind can happen? Impossible. We have to look at it in a practical sense. I have seen more hilarious, idiotic, ignorant chantings than this for getting people out of sicknesses. These are just ignorance, nothing else. They are delusional. They are deluded. Their followers are more deluded. So we have to understand the Buddha's teaching as it is. The problem is when a religion becomes older and older, there are people who create these kind of things and there are people who follow them. It happens. It is natural. But why you are getting educated in the authentic Buddha's teaching? Because to avoid this kind of nonsense and to get the gist of the Buddha's teaching, which will support you to practice properly, not to be blinded, but to open the eyes. So the Bojjhanga, this is a compound term made out of the 2 terms of Bodhi and Anga. Bodhi, we know, the one who has attained to enlightenment, also the state of enlightenment, Bodhi. Today, of course, we call Bodhi to the tree of enlightenment, where the Buddha got enlightened. Bodhi is enlightenment. Anga is factors. Physically, if you say physical I mean, for the body, if you say anga, that means parts of the body, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the other limbs of the body. But in the spiritual sense, anga is factors. Bodhi, anga, enlightenment factors, when they are combined, assemblaged, they become Bojjhanga. As you well aware, there are 7 Bojjhangas. We call them 7 factors of enlightenment or 7 enlightenment factors. Now, in the mainstream teachings of Buddha, you can find Buddha uses these 7 factors as what lead to enlightenment. Now, enlightenment is the realization upon that the life is suffering, misery. The cause of that misery is our own craving. Not your neighbor's craving, but your own craving. Not your craving of your government, but your craving. Not the craving of your husband, wife, children, anybody else, but your own craving is the cause of your suffering. And the destruction of that craving itself is the destruction of your misery. And then the path, the practice ground for the destruction of that craving is adopting and activating right way of looking at things, right view. Then the right thinking follows. Then right words, actions and livelihood. Then on the crescendo there is right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Eightfold noble path. The only path for that destruction of craving, for that elimination of suffering. This is the path for one to get enlightened. Now, this path is supported by many other virtues. These 7 factors of enlightenment are such supportive practice for that walk on that Eightfold Noble Path. Now, Buddha says these 8 factors lead to Nibbana. They are the ones leading you there. But later on, as the Buddhism started flourishing, another 2 definitions were created, especially in the Sarattapakasani, the commentary to Samyutta Nikaya. They created the 2 notions, 2 definitions of the 7 factors of enlightenment. They say the factors of the state of enlightenment, the factors which are in the state of enlightenment. The second one is the factors of enlightenment, or the factors of an enlightened being, the factors of the one who has been enlightened. Now, in that sense, if someone to be enlightened, and what are the factors of his enlightenment? These 7. And what are the factors within him? These 7. But of course we have to remember these 2 ideas. What are they? That the 7 enlightenment factors are the factors of the state of enlightenment and are the factors of an enlightened being, are created by the commentators, not exactly from the Buddha. But when we read the Samyutta Nikaya, the Bojjhanga Samyutta, we can find the commentators have solid ground to create such a view, such a definition for the enlightenment factors. Anyhow, this Bojjhanga Dhamma, we can see clearly a powerful advocate for one to gain Nibbana one day. That is for sure. Yeah, they are leading the one who is practicing towards Nibbana gradually, little by little, little by little. Now, for the ones who practice, can they practice just as it is? No, they must be supported first with other spiritual assistances. But without spiritual assistances, these 7 factors are hard to develop, cultivate, make or create like a citadel. A strong citadel which has 7 pillars where the army can look out for the enemies. This citadel cannot be built upon a weak, fragile basement, fragile foundation. It must have a strong foundation, a strong base for this citadel to be built up. Why it is compared to a citadel? Because the enemies are giants. The defilements within us are giants. Anger is a giant in you. Craving is a giant. Jealousy is a giant in us. When that giant wake up, your consciousness, your consciousness, your practical knowledge, your ability to think are all subdued, and the giant is in action. He is in action. He is controlling you, dominating you, handling you. You don't have any control over them. They control you. You are a dwarf in front of your own anger, jealousy, craving, attachment, fear. Defilements are created by us, and we have made them stronger and stronger in lifetime to after lifetime. Lifetime to lifetime we have been strengthening our defilements. Today they have become giants. To fight with these giants, you need a gigantic kind of citadel to guard you, to hold you, to keep you safe. And this citadel must be strong, must last for perpetuity, must give you the victory, or else you give up. On the way you give up, and surrender to those giants. Many people who joined Buddha with the aspiration to attain Nibbana, they gave up in the middle and ran away because of the simple reason that they could not fight or continue to fight with those giants of defilements. Their citadel is not that strong. They don't have a strong base, a strong foundation to build that citadel. That's the reason. So the foundation must be strong, and the first ingredient for this foundation is virtue, the sila. The control over the five senses, control over the words, the speech, the body, action, and the mind. Control over these five senses, and to maintain such a lifestyle, you are like a silent pond. A silent pond, even without a ripple of water. Maintenance of the virtue gives you the serenity, the silence. So virtue is very much important as the foremost ingredient for your foundation to build up the 7 factors of enlightenment. But virtue is not enough. There must be other beautiful qualities to support you. They are the delightfulness in seclusion, the second one. Delightful in the seclusion. It means you are delightful, you are happy in aloneness. Now, our usual habit pattern of our mind is to be delightful with the people we love, with the people we are happy to be with. When we are happy with the people, we cannot be happy alone. But there's a possibility you can balance it. You can balance it to be happy alone and to be happy together. Only a person who can be happy alone can be truly happy when he is together with someone. He is not clingy, he is not attached, he is not disturbing. He can be truly happy with someone else when he knows how to be happy alone. And remember, meditation can happen only to a person who is happy when he is alone. He can find happiness in meditation because he is happy in aloneness. So the first of the other ingredients to strengthen your foundation is to create this mentality, to create this background in you to be happy when you are alone. Now today we can say that even without your smartphone, because in today's society people are so attached to the smartphone People don't care about other people around. But the smartphone, while they are being connected with everybody around, they miss the others who is around. So, to be happy without your electronic gadgets like smartphone, tab, computers, that also included in relevant to the today's contemporary society. So the first virtue that support the sila is the ability to be happy alone. The second one is delightful in dispassion. In other words, to find delight beyond the sensual pleasures. Now usually we are to become delightful with the sensual pleasures. Pleasant scenes, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles and thoughts makes us delightful. Our delight, our happiness is based on those exterior pleasantries. What would happen to us if those people who make us happy change their allegiance, become enemies, start making us unhappy? We are unhappy. Our happiness was based on others, not ourselves. If your happiness is based on yourself, we call that happiness the spiritual happiness. Spiritual happiness. But remember, you can't have the both. The spiritual delightfulness is to find when you are secluded from the passion, secluded from sensual pleasures. That's why for meditation, especially a long-term retreat, you have to go away from the environment which provides you sensual pleasures, to a forest, to a hermitage, a meditation center. Because sensual pleasures and spiritual pleasures cannot go together. You have to select either of them. So the second virtue that supports the foundation is delightfulness in dispassion. In other words, delightfulness in spirituality beyond the sense pleasures. Now there was a monk, he's called Chittahatta. Chittahatta is mind tossed. The monk whose mind is tossed. It is a nickname given by other monks to this monk, Chittahatta. The mind tossed monk. Now this monk was a farmer before. One day he lost one of his cows, and in the forest he was roaming around searching that cow. It so happened the day went by. In the evening he's so hungry, no food for the whole day. He went to the monastery in the forest and asked the monks to give him some food. The monks gave him some leftovers, and it was delicious. The food was so delicious, and he thought, these monks get this kind of delicious food doing nothing. That's what they think. And we work hard for our living, still we cannot eat this kind of food any day. It is better to be a monk. And he requested the venerables in the temple to ordain him. The monks ordained him. And now he is just enjoying the food. After some time he got fat and he also got lazy. And he thought going for alms round, walking so far for food is something troublesome, something difficult. I cannot live this life anymore. I must go back. And he missed his wife. Desire for pleasures, sensual pleasures rose in him. He disrobed and went back home and started farming again. After some time, he remembered the food in the monastery. He missed those delicious food. Again he went to the temple and asked the monks to ordain him. Monks ordained him, and this happened for 6 times. The 6th time he left the monastery to be a farmer again, and he got some bad experience at home, was not ready to see those stuff, and he was disgusted about the sensual pleasures completely. He threw away the utensils of his farming and went to the monastery. On the way, he was contemplating on impermanence, misery caused by those impermanent stuff. On the way itself, he attained to the Sotapanna stage. When he went to the temple, monks were reluctant to accept him. This is not a trustworthy person. He is a chitta-hatta, mind-tossed person. Yeah? He is like a wet stone. So the monks rejected to ordain him, but he was insisting, repeatedly pleading the monks to ordain him. Ultimately, the monks relented, ordained him. Before long, he practiced hard and became an enlightened being, an arahant. As long as he was maintaining the delight in sensual pleasures, there was no spiritual development for him. Once he was fed up with them totally, completely, and even on the way to the temple, he got into the stage of Sotapanna. The delight in dispassion is such powerful, such a necessity for one to gain the liberation, for one to develop on the path of spirituality to Nibbana. The last one, dispassion, is the second one. The third one is delight in destroying, cessation, delight in cessation. Cessation is to happen in us when we are cultivating our spirituality. When you are cultivating your meditation and the other spiritual factors, you can find those negativities for the spirituality are starting to get diminished and evaporate, diluted. The one who is delightful on that cessation of those defilements is the one who is fast in his progress. So the spiritual delightment, being delightful in the spirituality, is threefold in the sense of delightfulness in renunciation, separation, aloneness. Delightfulness in dispassion, passionlessness. Delightfulness in cessation. These are the three factors which support the original virtue, the sila, which is out of that the foundation for the development of the 7 factors of enlightenment are made. Now these 7 factors of enlightenment, what are they? Sati, mindfulness. Beginning with vipassana, sati is the first factor. Now this has a significance. Yeah, let me get into you after the introducing these 7 factors. Sati is mindfulness. Dhamma vichaya, investigation of states. Dhamma vichaya. Virya, energy. Piti, zest, or you can say happiness. Passaddhi, tranquility. Samadhi, concentration, and upekha, equanimity. Beginning with sati, ending in upekha. Now this has a significant fact, the reason for this beginning, the sati. Now in one of the suttas in Samyutta Nikaya, Buddha says, as an answer for a question he was asked, what are the factors behind the development of the 7 factors of enlightenment? And he said, Chattari satipattanani, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, are the factors behind the development of 7 factors of enlightenment. Chattari Arya Satchan, Chattari Satipattanani. Now, when somebody practices Satipatthana on the body, Kayanupassana, on feelings, Vedananupassana, on mind, Chittanupassana, on mental factors, Dhammanupassana. When somebody practices these 4 Satipatthanas, it means there is a natural development of 7 factors of enlightenment. And sati to be taken to the front, there is another reason. It is that the sati paves the way for Dhamma vichaya to arise. And then Dhamma vichaya causes the energy to arise. That energy, piti, passaddhi, concentration, samadhi, and samadhi, upekha, equanimity. So, the 2 ways that we can find in the suttas, Samyutta Nikaya, Bojjhanga Sangyutta, Buddha presents that Satta Bojjhanga Dhamma, these 7 enlightenment factors can arise as one develops